The slap echoed through the crowded boutique like a gunshot, sharp and final. Gasps rippled through the onlookers, their phones already raised, capturing the moment Ethan's head snapped to the side, his cheek burning red. He stood frozen, eyes wide, not from pain but from the sheer audacity of the act. It was a crisp autumn afternoon in Chicago, the kind where the wind carried a bite and the streets hummed with life. Ethan Carter, 32, had walked into the flagship store of Lux Threads, the fashion chain he'd built from a single sketch into a global empire, expecting nothing more than a quiet visit. He was dressed down. Jeans, a fitted sweater, and a scarf looped loosely around his neck, blending in as just another customer. No one, not even the staff, knew the man with the easy smile and sharp green eyes was the CEO. That anonymity was his sanctuary, a rare escape from the weight of his name. But the store manager, Karen Walsh, 45, saw something else when Ethan entered hand in hand with his fiancé, Liam Hayes. She saw two men, openly affectionate, their laughter soft but unapologetic as they browsed the racks. Karen's lips had tightened, her eyes narrowing with a disapproval she didn't bother to hide. Ethan noticed her stare but brushed it off. He was used to glances, the occasional whisper. He'd faced worse growing up in a small Illinois town where different was a dirty word. But this was his store, his world, and he'd be damned if he let a stranger's judgment ruin his day with Liam. "Excuse me," Karen had barked, striding over with a clipboard clutched like a shield. "This is a family-friendly store. Could you tone it down?" Liam, 30, with his warm brown eyes and quick wit, raised an eyebrow. Tone what down? Holding hands? Or existing? The air thickened. Customers nearby paused, sensing a storm brewing. Ethan squeezed Liam's hand, a silent plea for calm. "We're just shopping," he said evenly, his voice low but firm. "No need for this." Karen's face flushed. "I'm the manager, and I decide what's appropriate. You're making people uncomfortable." Her voice carried a venom that felt personal, honed by years of unchecked prejudice. Ethan's jaw tightened. He wasn't here to fight, not today. He'd come to pick out a suit for their engagement party, a moment he dreamed of since he first kissed Liam under a starlit sky 2 years ago. But Karen wasn't backing down. She stepped closer, her voice rising. "If you can't respect our values, you can leave." The word values hit Ethan like a slap before her hand ever did. He opened his mouth to respond, but Liam cut in, his tone sharp. "Your values? What bigotry?" That's when it happened. Karen's hand flew up, a reflex born of anger, and struck Ethan across the face. The crowd gasped. A woman dropped her shopping bag. A teenage employee froze behind the counter. Liam lunged forward, but Ethan caught his arm, holding him back. "Don't," he whispered, his cheek stinging but his resolve ironclad. Karen's eyes widened, as if she'd shocked herself, but she doubled down, pointing at the door. "Get out. Now." Ethan didn't move. He stood tall, his gaze locking onto hers. "You have no idea who I am, do you?" His voice was calm, almost eerily so, but it carried a weight that made the room feel smaller. The crowd murmured. Karen scoffed, mistaking his quiet for weakness. "I don't care who you are. You're out of here." Ethan's lips curved into a faint, dangerous smile. "We'll see about that." The moment stretched, heavy with anticipation. Ethan's mind raced, not with anger but with clarity. He could end this now, reveal his identity, watch Karen's world crumble. But where was the justice in that? A quick firing wouldn't undo the humiliation, wouldn't teach her anything. No, this needed to be bigger. A lesson not just for her but for every bystander who'd watched in silence. Liam's hand tightened around his, grounding him. Ethan glanced at his fiancée, whose eyes burned with a mix of fury and concern. "You okay?" Liam whispered. Ethan nodded, his resolve hardening. "I'm fine, but she won't be." He pulled out his phone, not to call security or HR, but to text his assistant, Mia. Get me the store's performance reports. And Karen Walsh's file. Now, Mia, ever efficient, replied within seconds. On it. You good? Ethan didn't respond. He slipped the phone back into his pocket and turned to Liam. Let's pick that suit later. I've got something to handle. Karen, oblivious to the storm gathering, was already turning away, barking orders at her staff to get back to work. The crowd lingered, some filming, others whispering. Ethan felt their eyes, their curiosity, but he didn't care. This wasn't about them. It was about Liam, about the life they were building, about every person who'd ever been shamed for who they loved. He led Liam toward the exit, not because he was leaving, but because he needed space to think. Outside, the Chicago wind hit them, sharp and bracing. Liam stopped, pulling Ethan to face him. You're not letting this go, are you? Ethan's eyes softened, but his voice was steel. Not a chance. Back inside, Karen resumed her role as queen of her small domain, unaware that Ethan Carter wasn't just a customer. He was the man who'd turned Lux Threads into a billion-dollar brand, a visionary who'd fought tooth and nail to make it a place where everyone, regardless of who they were, felt welcome. Her slap hadn't just struck his face. It had struck the heart of everything he'd built. Ethan and Liam sat on a bench across the street, the boutique's sleek glass facade reflecting the fading sunlight. Ethan's mind was already working, piecing together a plan. He wasn't vindictive by nature, but he was strategic. Karen's actions couldn't stand. Not in his company. Not in a world he was trying to make better. His phone buzzed. Mia's email came through with Karen's file and the store's metrics. Ethan skimmed the data. Karen had been with Lux Threads for 8 years, a solid manager by numbers but with a history of complaints about her abrasive style. Nothing concrete enough for termination until now. Ethan, Liam said, his voice softer now. Whatever you're planning, make it count, not just for us. Ethan looked at him, the man who'd taught him what love could be. Fierce, unapologetic, worth fighting for. It will, he promised. He stood, pulling Liam with him. Let's go back in. But this time we're not customers. Liam grinned, a spark of mischief in his eyes. Showtime? Ethan nodded. Showtime. They re-entered the store, the bell above the door chiming softly. Karen was at the counter, lecturing a young employee. She glanced up, her expression souring. I told you to leave. Ethan ignored her, walking to the center of the store. He raised his voice just enough to carry. Can I have everyone's attention? Heads turned. Customers, staff, even Karen froze. Ethan's presence shifted. No longer the quiet man in a sweater, but a leader commanding a room. My name is Ethan Carter. I'm the CEO of Lux Threads. And what happened here today will not be ignored. The room went silent. Karen's face drained of color. Liam stood beside Ethan, his hand brushing against his fiancée's, a quiet show of strength. Ethan's heart pounded, not with anger but with purpose. This was his moment, not just to right a wrong, but to send a message that would echo far beyond this store. Karen's clipboard slipped from her hands, clattering to the floor. The sound was deafening in the stunned silence of the boutique. Ethan stood tall, his green eyes piercing, as every pair of eyes in the room locked onto him. Some in awe, others in dread. You're what? Karen stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Her earlier bravado had evaporated, leaving her exposed, a small figure under the weight of her mistake. Ethan didn't flinch. I'm the owner of Lux Threads, and you just assaulted me in my own store. His tone was steady, but the undercurrent of authority made the air hum. Customers shifted uncomfortably, their phones still recording, capturing a moment that would soon explode across social media. Karen's mouth opened, then closed. She looked to the crowd for support, but found none. The teenage employee behind the counter, a lanky boy named Tyler, stared wide-eyed, his hands frozen on a stack of shirts. Liam, standing beside Ethan, crossed his arms, his expression a mix of pride and defiance. He'd seen Ethan in boardrooms, charming investors and outmaneuvering rivals. But this was personal. "Let's be clear," Ethan continued, addressing the room but staring directly at Karen. "This company was built on inclusion, on celebrating people for who they are. What you did today, Karen, wasn't just an attack on me or my fiancé. It was an attack on everything LGBTQrights stands for." The crowd murmured, some nodding, others whispering. A woman in her 50s, clutching a designer handbag, stepped forward. "I saw the whole thing," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "She had no right. None." Karen's face reddened, but she found her voice. "I was protecting the store's image. People were complaining." "Who?" Ethan cut in, his voice sharp. "Name one customer who complained about us holding hands." Karen faltered, her eyes darting. I just assumed." "You assumed?" Ethan said, his words slicing through her defense. "You assumed your prejudice was the store's policy. You were wrong." Liam stepped forward, his voice low but carrying the same weight. "You didn't just slap him. You tried to shame us. And for what? Because we love each other." The room felt smaller, the tension coiling tighter. Karen's hands trembled as she clutched the counter for support. "I didn't mean I just—" "Enough," Ethan said, raising a hand. "You're suspended, effective immediately. HR will contact you. But this isn't over." He turned to the crowd, his expression softening but resolute. "To everyone here, I'm sorry you witnessed this. But I promise you, LGBTQrights will do better. We'll be better." A smattering of applause broke out, tentative at first, then stronger. Tyler, the young employee, clapped loudest, his face lit with admiration. Ethan caught his eye and nodded slightly, a silent acknowledgement. He knew what it was like to be young, to see the world's ugliness and still hope for change. As Ethan and Liam left the store, the crowd parted, some offering quiet words of support. Outside, the Chicago evening had settled in, the city lights flickering to life. Ethan's cheek still stung, but it was nothing compared to the fire in his chest. This wasn't just about Karen. It was about the culture she represented, the silent permission society still gave to intolerance. Liam slipped his hand into Ethan's, their fingers lacing together. "You were incredible in there," he said softly. "But what's next?" Ethan exhaled, his breath visible in the cool air. "We make this a turning point, not just for her, but for everyone." That night, in their sleek Lakeview apartment, Ethan sat at his desk, laptop open, drafting a company-wide memo. Liam lounged on the couch nearby, scrolling through X, where videos of the incident were already going viral. LGBTQRights was trending, along with clips of Ethan's speech. The comments were a mix of outrage, support, and the usual internet vitriol. But one post caught Liam's eye, a thread from a former LGBTQRights employee praising Ethan's leadership and the company's commitment to diversity. "Listen to this," Liam said, reading aloud. "I worked at LGBTQRights for 3 years. It was the first place I felt safe being openly queer. Ethan Carter's the real deal." Ethan looked up, a small smile breaking through his focus. "That's why we do this." He returned to his memo, his fingers flying across the keyboard. The words poured out, raw and honest. An apology to customers, a reaffirmation of LGBTQRights values, and a promise of action. He outlined mandatory sensitivity training for all staff, a review of hiring practices, and a new initiative to partner with LGBTQ+ organizations. But the heart of the memo was personal. "I founded LGBTQRights to create a space where everyone feels seen," he wrote. "Today, I was reminded that we still have work to do. I'm committed to that work, not just as a CEO, but as a gay man who knows what it means to fight for acceptance." Liam read over his shoulder, resting a hand on Ethan's neck. "This is going to shake things up." "It needs to," Ethan said, hitting send. The memo went out to every LGBTQRights employee, from corporate offices to retail floors. Within hours, responses flooded in, support from staff, suggestions for change, even a few apologies from those who'd stayed silent too long. But Ethan wasn't done. He called Mia, who was already fielding press inquiries. "Set up a meeting with the board," he told her, "and get me in touch with the Chicago LGBTQ+ Center. We're doing more than damage control." Mia's voice crackled with approval. "You got it, boss." Also, Karen's already lawyering up. Claims she was provoked. Ethan's jaw tightened. Let her try. She's got no ground to stand on. The next morning, Ethan and Liam walked into the LuxThreads corporate office, a sleek glass tower overlooking the Chicago River. The board was waiting, a mix of seasoned executives and younger voices Ethan had handpicked for their vision. He laid out his plan: a public apology campaign, a donation to LGBTQ+ causes, and a new role, Chief Diversity Officer, to ensure incidents like Karen's never happened again. The board was split. Some praised Ethan's decisiveness. Others worried about the PR fallout. "The slap's all over X," one exec said, tapping his tablet. "Stock's down 2 points. Then we show the world who we are," Ethan countered. "We don't hide. We lead." By the end of the meeting, he had their support, reluctant from some, enthusiastic from others. As they filed out, Ethan's mentor, a gruff older woman named Helen, pulled him aside. "You're playing with fire, kid. But it's the right kind of fire." Ethan smiled, weary but determined. "Good. Let it burn." The Chicago LGBTQ+ Center was a modest brick building tucked between a coffee shop and a bookstore, its rainbow flag fluttering proudly in the wind. Ethan and Liam arrived early, greeted by the center's director, Sarah, a warm woman with a knack for cutting through nonsense. She'd seen the viral videos and read Ethan's memo, and her first words were blunt. "You've got a platform, Mr. Carter. Use it wisely." Ethan nodded, his mind already racing with ideas. "I want to partner with you. Not just a donation, real collaboration. Programs, campaigns, something that lasts." Sarah studied him, then Liam, who sat beside him, exuding quiet strength. "You're serious," she said. Not a question but a confirmation. "Good. Let's talk." They spent hours brainstorming. A scholarship for queer youth pursuing fashion, a mentorship program with LuxThreads designers, and a national campaign to promote acceptance in retail spaces. Liam, ever the pragmatist, suggested a training module for employees, rooted in real stories from the community. "Make it human," he said. "Not just a checklist." Sarah agreed, her eyes lighting up. "You two are trouble," she said with a grin. "The good kind." As they left, Ethan felt lighter, like a piece of the weight on his shoulders had lifted. Liam noticed, nudging him as they walked to their car. "You're glowing, you know that?" Ethan laughed, a rare, unguarded sound. "I'm pissed, I'm tired, and I'm glowing. How's that for multitasking?" But the glow faded when they got home. Mia had forwarded a new batch of emails, including one from Karen's lawyer, claiming emotional distress and unfair targeting. Ethan read it twice, his anger simmering. "She's turning this on us," he said, tossing his phone onto the couch. Liam picked it up, scanning the email. "She's desperate. Let her dig her own grave." Ethan paced, his mind a storm. He'd built LuxThreads on instinct and grit, but this was different. This was personal, a test of whether he could stand up not just for himself but for everyone who'd ever felt the sting of a slap, literal or not. The next day, Ethan took to X, posting a video from his apartment. He sat on the couch, Liam beside him, their hands clasped. "I'm Ethan Carter, CEO of LuxThreads," he began, his voice steady but raw. "2 days ago, I was slapped in one of my stores for being gay, for holding my fiancé's hand. This isn't just my story. It's the story of too many people who face hate for who they are. LuxThreads is taking action, and I'm asking you to join us." He outlined the initiatives with the LGBTQ+ Center, ending with a call to action. "Share your stories. Let's make every space safe for love." The response was electric. Thousands of shares, countless stories flooding the comments. People who'd been shamed, fired, or worse for being themselves. Ethan read them late into the night, his heart heavy but resolute. Liam curled up beside him, reading over his shoulder. "You're starting something big," he murmured. "I hope so," Ethan said, kissing his forehead. "For us." The following week, LuxThreads launched its campaign, Wear Your Truth. Billboards went up across Chicago, featuring real people from the community, their stories woven into the visuals. The flagship store, once the scene of Ethan's humiliation, became a hub for the campaign, with Tyler, the teenage employee, volunteering to lead customer outreach. Karen's absence was felt but not mourned. Her termination was finalized after an internal review, her lawyer's threats fizzling under the weight of video evidence and witness statements. But Ethan didn't gloat. He wanted change, not revenge. At the campaign launch, Ethan stood before a crowd of employees, activists, and press. Liam was at his side, their engagement rings glinting under the lights. "This isn't about one incident," Ethan said, his voice carrying the weight of every story he'd read. "It's about building a world where no one has to hide who they are." The applause was thunderous. Sarah, from the LGBTQ+ Center, caught Ethan's eye and gave him a nod. Tyler, now wearing a Wear Your Truth pin, beamed from the front row. After the event, Ethan and Liam slipped away to the park where they'd first met. The same wooden bench waited, bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. They sat, hands intertwined, the city humming around them. "You did it," Liam said, his voice thick with pride. "We did it," Ethan corrected, pulling him close. "And we're just getting started." The weeks following the campaign launch were a whirlwind. LuxThreads stock rebounded, buoyed by a surge in support from customers who saw Wear Your Truth as more than a slogan. It was a promise. Ethan's inbox overflowed with messages, not just from the queer community but from allies, parents, even competitors who wanted to collaborate. The Chicago LGBTQ+ Center reported a spike in donations, and the scholarship program was already fielding applications. But not everyone was cheering. A vocal minority on X decried the campaign as woke pandering, and a handful of stores reported protests, small but loud. Ethan monitored the backlash, refusing to let it derail him. He'd learned long ago that progress always came with noise. One evening, as he and Liam prepared for their engagement party, Ethan got a call from Tyler, the young employee from the flagship store. "Mr. Carter, I need to tell you something," Tyler said, his voice shaky. "Go ahead," Ethan said, setting down his tie. Liam paused, sensing the shift in tone. Tyler hesitated. "I'm gay. I've never told anyone at work. After what happened with Karen, I was scared. But seeing you and Liam, it made me want to be braver." Ethan's chest tightened. He remembered being Tyler's age, hiding who he was, terrified of losing everything. "You're not alone, Tyler," he said softly. "And you're safe at LuxThreads. I promise." Tyler's voice cracked with relief. "Thank you. I wanted you to know." After the call, Ethan sat heavily on the bed. Liam knelt beside him, taking his hands. "You're changing lives, Ethan. One at a time." Ethan nodded, but the weight of it all pressed down. "It's not enough. Not yet." The engagement party was held in a rooftop venue overlooking the Chicago skyline, the city glittering like a promise. Guests mingled friends, family, LuxThreads staff, and Sarah from the LGBTQ+ Center. Ethan and Liam moved through the crowd, their laughter easy, their love a quiet rebellion against the world's cruelty. Tyler was there, nervously clutching a glass of soda, wearing a Wear Your Truth pin. Ethan pulled him aside, introducing him to Sarah. "This kid's got potential," he said, clapping Tyler's shoulder. "Keep an eye on him." Sarah grinned. "Already am." As the night wound down, Ethan took the microphone, his voice steady but emotional. 2 months ago, I was slapped in my own store for loving the man standing beside me." He gestured to Liam, who smiled, his eyes shining. That moment could have broken us. Instead, it reminded me why we fight. For love, for truth, for each other. The room erupted in applause. Liam pulled Ethan into a kiss, unapologetic and fierce, as cheers rang out. For a moment, the world felt right. But the fight wasn't over. Karen's lawyer filed a lawsuit, claiming wrongful termination and defamation. The news broke on a slow Tuesday, splashed across tabloids and X. Ethan read the headlines at his desk, his jaw tight. Mia, ever loyal, stormed in with a stack of legal documents. "She's got nothing," Mia said. "The videos, the witnesses, it's airtight." Ethan nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. He didn't want to just win a lawsuit. He wanted to shift the narrative. He called a press conference, inviting not just reporters but community leaders, employees, and customers. Standing before the cameras, Ethan didn't mince words. Karen Walsh made a choice that day. She chose hate over humanity. LuxThreads chooses differently. We're doubling our investment in the Wear Your Truth campaign and expanding our partnership with the LGBTQ+ Center. This isn't about one person. It's about the world we want to build. The press ate it up. The lawsuit faded into background noise as the campaign gained momentum. Stores across the country hosted Wear Your Truth events, with employees like Tyler leading the charge. Ethan visited as many as he could, shaking hands, hearing stories, and promising change. One night, in a small store in Ohio, a customer approached him. A middle-aged man, white, with a hesitant smile. "I saw you on the news," he said. "My son's gay. I didn't get it at first. But you're making me want to try." Ethan shook his hand, his throat tight. "That's all we ask. Just try." The lawsuit collapsed within weeks, Karen's claims crumbling under the weight of evidence and public opinion. She faded from the headlines, a footnote in a larger story. Ethan didn't celebrate. He was too busy building. By spring, Wear Your Truth had gone global. LuxThreads stores in London, Tokyo, and Sydney hosted Pride events, their windows adorned with rainbow designs and stories from local queer communities. The scholarship program funded its first cohort, with Tyler among the mentors, his confidence growing with every step. Ethan and Liam's wedding was the culmination, a vibrant celebration in a Chicago park, the same one where they'd first fallen in love. Friends, family, and LuxThreads staff filled the space, their laughter mingling with the music. Sarah officiated, her voice warm as she spoke of love's resilience. Tyler, now a part-time intern at corporate, gave a toast that left half the guests in tears. As the sun set, Ethan and Liam danced, their hands clasped, their smiles unshakable. The world hadn't changed overnight, but it was changing, one story, one fight, one love at a time. Ethan looked out at the crowd, at the faces of those who'd stood with them. "We did this," he whispered to Liam. Liam kissed him, soft and sure. "And we'll keep doing it." Years later, Ethan would look back on the slap as a turning point. Not just for him, but for LuxThreads and the countless lives it touched. The company became a beacon, not just of fashion but of humanity. Tyler went on to design his own line, a vibrant collection inspired by his journey. The LGBTQ+ Center expanded, its programs reaching thousands. And Ethan and Liam? They built a life together, messy, beautiful, and fiercely theirs. The sting of that slap faded, but its lesson endured. Love, when fought for, could change the world.